burned by whites, then flooded by the waters of Lake Lanier, covering up the grave sites and town of Oscarville, a thriving black-owned community, intentionally flooded to hide the sins of the past. I enjoy using old maps to find interesting places to scan using sonar, or in this case, what was in the valley before it was flooded to make Lake Lanier. My first video showed what I had found, which was interesting for sure, but also exposed me to questions about Oscarville, a town claimed to be underwater. While I didn't believe it true, I also didn't think I'd ever find a standing bridge and house either. So while skeptical, I was also intrigued. When searching about Oscarville on the internet, the descriptions in some cases both colorful and dramatic. Many of these descriptions included that it had a racetrack, churches with cemeteries intact, businesses and homes that are still standing under the surface. The middle images given by some of these descriptions would lead you to believe that if we could see through the water, you would find a town complete with buildings standing along the streets with sidewalks. If we do have something like that under the surface of Lake Lanier, I am all about finding it. So let's go look into what we can find and prove true. Surprisingly, a quick Google search revealed Oscarville is not underwater at all. It resides today just off Highway 369, also known as Browns Bridge Road. Since we now know Oscarville isn't underwater today, we needed to confirm this was the original location, remembering the stories of Oscarville centered around events in 1912. After looking at maps from the late 1800s as compared to 1930s and 1950s, it confirmed there wasn't another convergence of roads or any sign of a town near the current Oscarville during that period. Simply put, from 1891 until the lake was impounded in 1956, 3 major roads existed with one convergence spot, today's Oscarville. So what can we find out about Oscarville? How big was it? Was it a black community? As far as size, we found one online reference citing the population of Oscarville at 63 people in the 1900 census, and I will put a link to that in the description. In the 1930s, aerial images showed Oscarville and the surrounding area was mostly farmland with houses and barns sparsely scattered about, with most development off of those 3 main roads. Further research uncovered reference to a Mount Zion cemetery of Oscarville, with its first burial recorded in 1849. The cemetery still exists today. We learned about Mount Zion Lodge that was then built across the street from the cemetery in 1885. These historical references to Oscarville, combined with the fact that no other area near its current location had roads to support a town or city, illustrates Oscarville has indeed not moved. And with that information, we can begin to debunk some of the myths being portrayed as fact. First, Oscarville did not have its own racetrack. The racetrack, flooded by Lake Lanier, was Looper Speedway, later known as Gainesville Raceway. My second video shows its location north of Gainesville in Hall County, miles from the Forsyth County community of Oscarville. Second, Oscarville was not flooded by the waters of Lake Lanier. You could say much of the farmland between it and the Chattahoochee was flooded, but looking at aerial images confirm no town with buildings was flooded. So was Oscarville a prosperous black community? We were able to find information on some of the folks buried in the Mount Zion Cemetery. It contains burials of 5 Confederate soldiers and plots for 21 surnames. Using Ancestry.com and other online sources, we were able to conclude the Woodliff family, who were a founding family and surname with the most burials in the cemetery, with George, the first buried in 1849, was a Caucasian family, two of which were officers in the Confederate Army. We were also able to find out the aforementioned Mount Zion Lodge provided a school on the first floor and a lodge meeting room on the second floor for the Masons. That meeting room was also shared by the Independent Order of Oddfellows, and I'll put a link to that description or in the description as well. During this time period, blacks were not permitted membership to either group. So since we have evidence there was a white population, we can't really say Oscarville was a black town as some have reported. We can't rule out there wasn't a black population either, but from the newspaper stories read, it would appear the black population was much like it was throughout the entire county, a minority. The last claim is more related to the haunting of the lake as a result of graves being with remains still buried beneath the surface. There are records of the purchase of the land used as cemeteries and records of the movement of bodies. One predominantly black church, Spencer Hill Baptist Church, had its cemetery in its entirety moved to Union Baptist Church, another predominantly black church in Beaufort. We cannot find any information on any known cemetery that was left to be flooded. We can only assume a statement such as, "There must have been some graves they didn't know about," became the embellished story of today. It would be completely expected there might have been a Native American or other small family graves that were unmarked and unknown. But there are no facts we can find to support today's gruesomely imaginative descriptions of graves intentionally being left to be flooded by the waters of Lake Lanier. So in conclusion, the fictional stories of Oscarville have been created and repeated over and over, becoming more vibrant with time. The incidents surrounding the racial problems of 1912 in Forsyth County were real, but not connected to Lake Lanier. These false connections to the lake are baseless as far as I can tell. It appears some have taken things from the 1912 incident, such as the 1,098 blacks being run out of Forsyth County, and turned it into run out of Oscarville. I'll leave it up to you as to why there is never any substance or proof on the tales being told, but I can find nothing to substantiate the claims for a haunted Lake Lanier or flooding of a town of any kind. We welcome your comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please drop us a like. Thanks for watching.